Hi.
Hi.
Hi everybody.
Hey there.
Hello everyone.
Salam sejahtera.
各位大家好。
Good evening, my fellow Singaporeans. My name is Chee Soon Juan, and I am the Secretary General of the Singapore Democratic Party.
I'm Dr. Paul Anantanbaya. My name is Benjamin Queen.
I'm Min Cheong.
My name is Robin Low.
My name is James Gomez.
My name is Wayin.
I am Daman Huri Abbas.
I am Tan Ji Se.
I'm Alfred Tan.
Support me and support the SDP.
Please support us, support SDP.
Support the SDP.
Support the SDP.
Support the SDP.
Sokong SDP. Hingga ke panisaya ng katirikit.
支持農能，支持民主黨。
Support us to help build a democratic Singapore based on justice and equality.
I invite you, my fellow Singaporeans, to stand up and walk. Hi again, my fellow Singaporeans. Now we're into the final stretch of the GE, and in a few days from now, you are going to vote. I want to give you a powerful reason to vote for the SDP. So I hope you'll listen carefully to what I have to say for the next few minutes. I promised you in my previous speeches that I will explain to you how we're going to fund our 4Y and 1N campaign. Well, tonight, I'll focus on the first 3 yeses in this campaign. Yeses that will ease your financial burden and tide you through your problems that lie ahead. More important, as I said, I'll explain how these programs are going to be paid for. Now, the first yes is to suspend GST until 2021. The reason is that we need to encourage Singaporeans to continue their spending as normally as possible. If we don't, then businesses are going to suffer and close down, and more workers will be retrenched. This is not good for our economy. Now, the government collects about $10 billion a year in GST. The second yes is to implement a retrenchment benefit scheme where we pay workers who are retrenched an average of 50% of their salary for 18 months, subject, of course, to a cap of the median wage. We call this scheme Re-employment Scheme and Temporary Assistance for the Retrenched. But it's such a mouthful, so we abbreviated it to Restart. Now, workers who are retrenched through no fault of theirs find that all of a sudden they don't have an income, while bills continue to pile up. The Restart scheme provides temporary relief for these workers. And during this period, MOM will help them to find re-employment and match skills with available jobs. And to prevent abuse, workers can only reject up to 3 job offers. We estimate that such a program would incur about $2 billion a year. Now, the third yes is to provide the lower 80% of our retirees $500 a month in income. This not only helps our elderly get by, but it also relieves their working children of having to financially support for them. Like Restart, these payouts would help the economy as retirees now have a bit of pocket money to spend on daily necessities. Now, this program, which we call the Retirement Income Scheme for the Elderly, or RISE, would cost the state about $2.8 billion a year. So together, the 3 measures that would cost about $15 billion to implement in the first year. How do we pay for all this? Well, experts have estimated our reserves to be more than $1 trillion. That's 1,000 billion dollars. Now, this money is used to invest in investments and businesses that the government conducts within and outside of Singapore. From these investments and projects, we generate income and returns. Now, let's call this income from the reserves. Now, this income, of course, fluctuates, but recently it's about between $30 to $40 billion a year. We use about 50% of it for the various government programs. For 2020, this income is estimated to be about $37 billion, and for financial year, as I said, 2020. Now, 50% of $37 billion is about $19 billion. Now, this $19 billion is more than covers the 3 measures that the SDP proposes: suspend GST, implement Restart, and RISE. After 2021, the government will then go back to collecting GST at 7%, and we only have Restart and RISE to pay for. Now, I want to emphasize this so that the PAP cannot twist what we are saying. We are using the income generated from our reserves and not the reserves itself. Now, compare this to the PAP's program. A significant portion of the nearly $100 billion budget it passed this year goes to supporting businesses in the hope that it can prevent employers from retrenching workers, as well as not to implement wage cuts. But I've heard many cases that some employers are not giving their employees their due share of the financial help, or making excuses to retrench workers by saying that they are restructuring their companies, firing workers for unjustified reasons, and so on. Furthermore, many of these companies belong to the government, so it is like taking money from the right pocket and putting it into the left. Instead of giving companies the money, the SDP's plan like Restart and Rise will put money in the pockets of Singaporeans. Now, this is ready cash that they can use, and when they start spending, businesses will survive and thrive. Employers, employees, consumers, elderly working couples all benefit. Sure, the PAP will say that it has implemented programs like the Pioneer and Merdeka generation packages. But don't forget, much of these funds go to topping up your Medisave accounts, which you cannot rely on until you're hospitalized. And much of these funds are still retained by the government. Again, our proposals provide ready cash for the people to use, which will not only help to ease the burden of Singaporeans, but also stimulate our economy. While there are other government programs like ComCare and Silver Support Scheme, these programs are obviously not enough. There is still a large segment of the population which continue to struggle with poverty and live from hand to mouth. As you can see, the SDP's proposals are meant to put cash in the hands of the people and is a better approach than the PAP's. In the meantime, we want the PAP to cut down on its wasteful spending. Now, the Auditor General has repeatedly cited the PAP for financial imprudence when it comes to public spending. Now, let me cite you just a few examples. In 2008, the Auditor General's report said, every year we see instances of lack of financial prudence in procurement and poor management of contracts and agreements resulting in high expenditure for goods and services. 3 years later, in 2011, the Auditor General again pointed out, I note that the lapses found were largely due to administrative expediency, taking precedence over financial prudence. But despite this, the problem continued. In 2016, the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, or MCCY, paid, now are you ready, $880,000 for a rubbish centre. Half of the amount went to paying the consultancy fee for the project. The AGO pointed out that there was inadequate assessment of the reasonableness of the exceptionally high consultancy fee. That same year, the Ministry of Manpower bought a computer system for nearly $500,000 only to find that it could not be used and was chucked aside. $500,000 just like that. The Auditor General said this has resulted in a waste of public funds. The following year, in 2017, the AGO now found that MOH had paid $4 million for staff despite the ministry having already hired a contractor for $8 million to provide the service. The Auditor General said that there was no assurance that MOH had exercised, and that's the word again, financial prudence in the use of public funds. In 2015 and 2016, the PAP spent $40 million on National Day celebrations. Now take a look at this picture. It shows Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan at a National Day parade in 2018. Look at the TV monitor in front of him. Why can't the ministers just look up to see what's going on? And if they cannot see the parade, use their binoculars. Why do you need to install a special TV monitor for the ministers? The money doesn't come from the ministers' own pockets, you see. It came from our taxes. And that's why it's money come, easy go for the ministers. In 2015, the government paid $400,000 to a brand consultancy firm wanting to find another name for Marina Bay. After a few months and plenty of consultation, the place was named, you guessed it, Marina Bay. In 2017, Mr. Chee Soon Juan said that the Bukit Panjang LRT cost the taxpayers $285 million and was constructed as an afterthought and built under political pressure. The PAP also built Jewel, Changi, for $1.8 billion, despite the oversupply of retail space in Singapore. Barely 1 year into its opening, Jewel was reporting falling human traffic and sales. Now, please note that this started even before the outbreak of the coronavirus. Hand on heart, can we say that all these were wise expenditure of public funds? And the PAP isn't stopping there. It will soon start construction on the Founders Memorial, which is essentially another vanity monument. It announced last year that it would spend $60 billion over the next 10 years, and that's $6 billion a year, to expand and renew the rail network. I suspect this is an anticipation of a bigger population. Now, who is going to pay for all this? Well, you are. Another area that the PAP must cut down on is the staggering amount of salaries it pays to ministers. And we calculated that if the PM cuts his salary to about $60,000 a month, from $200,000 a month right now, and ministers to about $40,000 a month, that's still a lot of money and higher than many other government ministers around the world are paid. The savings from this cut down in the salary can be used to provide 2,000 of the poorest of our poor elderly people with a $500 a month salary income to survive on, so that they don't have to work when their bodies are crying out for help and for rest. But I'm sure many of you have asked this question. Why does the government need to raise the GST to 9%? Well, Mr. Lee himself answered the question. He said, what will make you need to raise the GST? Profligate spending and irresponsible, unsustainable plans. That is what will hurt and require you to raise taxes and GST. And we need to cut down on all this wasteful and profligate spending and meaningless projects, and instead invest the money in programs like Restart and Rise. If you elect us into Parliament, we will make sure that this happens and push for such programs. Now, I hope that I've given you a good account of how we can quite soundly fund the SDP's programs. The important thing to remember, fellow Singaporeans, is that we must not allow the PAP to define what is worthwhile expenditure and what is not. Every party, based on its values, has a priority in terms of how best to expend public funds. The SDP's philosophy is that we must put people first, not corporations and the millionaires and billionaires like the ministers themselves. If we do that, we boost the sense of financial security among our workers, ease your financial burdens, making us a happier people. And if the people feel happier and appreciated, their productivity increases. And if their productivity increases, employers make bigger profits, and this gets channeled back to the workers, and the virtuous cycle continues. Now, through all this, we must remember that as we progress, we must progress holistically. We must bring the entire society along and not leave the elderly poor who have to collect cardboard to survive, or poor families whose children cannot afford computer devices or don't have enough pocket money to have lunch. We must not fall into the trap of calculating everything in dollars and cents like the Scrooge, where society is heartless and soulless, and the only thing that matters is ourselves. We must not get into the situation where we know the price of everything but the value of nothing. If we do this, I guarantee you that as a society, as a people, we will ultimately fail. We will be the poorer for it, and at the end of the day, our nation will fail. Now, I hope that my colleagues and I have persuaded you to support our 4Y1N measures. Tonight, I've explained to you how we can quite comfortably and soundly fund these programs. Please, vote for us and send a clear message to the PAP that you want the government to implement these policies to help the people. If you don't vote for us, it means that you don't want to get financial protection if you're retrenched, and that you or your elderly parents don't want to receive $500 every month as income, and that you want to continue paying 7% GST and then 9% GST after 2021. So please, think carefully about how you vote on Friday. Vote wisely. Vote to protect your own future. Vote SDP. Thank you and good night.